Well, welcome back to our next episode of The Awakened Stranger. And this is Cody again. And today we're sitting with Heather. And here in a second, I'm going to give Heather a moment to introduce herself and share some of her life experiences, some of the things that she's gone through, and kind of what's led her to this point of her and I sitting down and having this conversation. So, again, thank you guys for spending the time listening to us and being a part of this and for the support. I truly appreciate you. And with that, Heather, if you'd like to take a moment and give us a quick introduction to who you are and maybe some life experiences, some things that you've gone through that's led you to this point.
Sure thing. Hello, my name is Heather. I am 52. I live in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And as far as what led me here, I would say I think a lot of us are in a bit of a crossroads right now where things feel really weird. It's like this weird silence before, I don't know. It's like, have you ever been in severe weather and it's like that really strange calm, but it's like you're waiting for the shoe to drop?
Calm before the storm. Yes.
Yeah. It's starting to feel like that right now. But so as far as my story goes, I actually have been on my own spiritual awakening journey myself. So that's what made me resonate so much with your videos, because I thought, oh man, I get this so hard. I have had a few more traumas than I would like, but at the same time, I think we all know that these challenges are what makes us and what makes us stronger. And, a lot of this started when I was married. So just for a little bit of background, I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I have always lived here. And I'm the youngest of 3 children, and my 2 older siblings, they still live here in the Twin Cities, as do my folks. And we always kind of came from a pretty normal, I don't know, leave it to beaver kind of family. Like, sure, there's kind of like the normal dad goes to work all day every day and doesn't say a lot. He's kind of stoic or whatever. But like by and large, I had a pretty healthy upbringing. And then when I got married, which was relatively young, I was only 23. I don't think you know yourself super well at 23, although I am very impressed with many 20-somethings these days, because I feel like they all know themselves way better than I ever had at that age. Yeah. And it just felt like, I don't know, I met my partner when we were only 19, so it made sense to get married early, just because we had known each other for so many years. So we were married by the time I was 23, had kids by the time I was 25 and 30. And when things really started to get kind of weird with life was when my now ex-husband, he had a heart attack when he was 33. Oh, wow. And that was really hard because my kids were only 2 and 7 at the time. And let's face it, like when you go to the hospital and you go to visit a loved one, in the cardiac unit or whatever, everybody's like in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're not in their 30s. And so that was really difficult to navigate because he naturally and understandably was scared of dying. And he was forced to quit smoking, and he became a really angry guy. And he didn't really, and he of course fell into a deep depression, and he didn't really manage any of this, unfortunately. And a lot of the societal conditioning that has happened with many of us, especially we've all been subject to it, right? Like our Gen Xers, we all know what we've been up against. And that was kind of like the beginning of what started to be a lot of challenges in life. So as you could probably imagine, things with life got very stressful because I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time with my husband at the time. And things really got crazy when we ended up deciding to divorce, which was almost 10 years later. It was in 2015. We grew apart. There were some issues. tons of issues. I mean, I'm sure a lot of women, unfortunately, are leaving their partners in droves at this point, and it's really sad, honestly, because it's not anybody's fault of what's happening today with men and women and how they communicate and how they receive love and all those kinds of things. But there's just such a disconnect, and I feel terrible about what men have been forced to endure, which is you're not allowed to feel, you're not allowed to get sad, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think those things, but I hate that society kind of created these really crappy unwritten rules for people in our society. And so as things continue to progress with life, I guess the majority of my story is largely attributed to trauma, mental health, and burnout. And in 2015 is kind of when things started really going downhill. In 2016, my husband and I had told our children, like in May of 2016, that we'd be getting a divorce. And a month later, I had massive blood clots in my lungs. And looking back, like, I think that was all trauma. Doctors could never figure out, why does Heather have blood clots in her lungs? There's no genetic factors. The only thing they could point it to is that I had been on birth control for a long period of time. And that's understandable, because I wasn't prepared to have 8 kids. Instead, I just had 2. So at the time, it was really scary because I should have died. But I survived that and eventually ended up leaving my husband in 2017. And then the shit really hit the fan. So I moved out of what was our family home in June of 2017. And then we dropped our oldest, our daughter, off for her first year of college. And 2 weeks later, my ex-husband suddenly passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was unexpected. My son was with him. My daughter was away at college, in a different state. And so she didn't know what was going on. And when I got that call from my son, he didn't know what was going on. He just knew his dad fell out of his chair, and he didn't look to be alert, and he was, of course, unresponsive. Well, come to find out much later, after the ambulance comes and paramedics are working with him for quite a while, that he, they never did an autopsy, but they told us he had a widowmaker, like the really bad heart attack that kills you right away.
Yeah.
So that was honestly the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. Like, all these really weird, complex feelings around, like, re-grieving the divorce, helping my kids navigate life without a dad, trying to figure out, and just the grief around, like, oh my gosh, they'll never have, like, my daughter will never have her dad walk her down the aisle when she gets married, or, just that kind of stuff. Like, it starts to go through your mind, all the things that their dad is going to miss, and that they will miss with their dad. And they didn't have an awesome relationship with their dad because he had so many mental health issues he wasn't dealing with, but it was just sort of like this crazy domino effect. So I continued to support my children, and they had wanted me to handle his estate. So, because they wanted to be able to have a say in, like, where all his dad, their dad's things ended up, right? And so even though we were divorced, only a few months before, officially a few months before he passed, I handled his estate, and his family, I think, was grateful for that. But just a lot of really weird dynamics. And I had a cancer scare in there. It's just kind of been one thing after the other. So long and the short of it is, as I get through that whole grieving process, and I eventually end up closing up his estate, life kind of finally started to get back on track in 2019. And then, of course, COVID hit a year later. And I don't know about you, Cody, but I am largely extroverted. I mean, I do need to be alone sometimes to recharge, but I could not deal with the isolation.
No, and that I'm the same way. I feel like I'm learning how to be okay with myself being alone, because I felt very lonely lately with kind of everything switching and changing and kind of the way I see the world. But then I'm also that same way where I want to be around people, but then people drain you, and I'm like, oh, it's like a double-edged sword. So yeah, I get that.
Sometimes, right? But it was just a long time to try to figure out, like, what do I do with my time, and how do I get my social bucket filled when the only person who lives with me, my son, you know, and at the time he was 16, you know, when COVID started, you know, he's square in that age group where kids are isolating. They're in their bedroom, they're on their phone or their computer all the time. And, you know, he kind of had his own mental issues to deal with during that time, because doing school remotely his entire junior year of high school, which is, you know, notorious for being really challenging, and, you know, college preparation and whatever. So anyway, it was super depressing. But antidepressants is kind of when that started to come into my life, and that made a huge difference. And a year later, I started my perimenopause journey, which has been brutal. So I had my first hot flash in April of 21, and the hot flashes I get are, without becoming graphic, I mean, they're debilitating. Like, they last over an hour, and the sweating is more than the usual person. And it's, you know, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. It's disgusting. It's horrible. And it's like, I was so afraid I wouldn't be able to work or function. And a few months later, I had a breast cancer diagnosis. And then I was really worried they would want to put me on hormone blockers, because the cancer that I had was hormone positive. And fortunately, this is where I'm like, oh my God, I got so lucky. I did not need any chemo. I did not need any radiation. And I did not need any hormone blockers.
Wow.
If that's not divine intervention, I don't know what is.
Yeah. That's cool.
It was. And I mean, so I got through all of that without too much hassle. And, I mean, yeah, lots of appointments and a lot of surgeries and whatnot, but I'm here, and that's all that matters, right? So at this point, you know, I'm looking for a different job after I navigated the majority of my breast cancer treatment, because my job at the time, they knew I wasn't getting chemo or radiation. And I think they thought, why the hell does Heather have so many appointments? So they just kept watching me and asking me, like, why do you have so many appointments? And I just thought, God, what difference does it make? Like, I'm still working, and I still have to go to the doctor at least every week. So I don't know, I got a lot of pressure. I felt like I was being monitored a lot. It was very stressful, because I kind of got the implication, or the idea, like, it sounded like my boss was trying to get rid of me, because I don't think she likes that I had so many appointments. And so I was able to land a different job, and within a year and a half, I liked the job, but I was, you know, the leadership of the company had changed a lot, just so many changes, and everything led to a stomach ulcer.
Oh, wow.
So all of this is just like the wake-up call that I needed, because it was just like one thing after the other. And I think as I've started to kind of, it's kind of ironic that we're doing this today, because just yesterday or day before, I posted a video about my story, and like my burnout story of how I got to where I am and what caused me to wake up. And it was the stomach ulcer ultimately, because it's like none of these other conditions that I've dealt with are super like, oh yeah, that's stress. That's definitely stress. It's like these things happen to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't assume that they were stress or emotional trauma, but they were, looking back. And so at that point, I decided to work with a burnout coach. And what I didn't know then that I know now is I was getting exploited at work, where I was putting in way too many hours. I was overfunctioning and giving away too much of my time and energy with not enough boundaries. And like you, Cody, I've done a lot of introspective work. And this coach that I've been working with since, so it's been 2.5 years of work with her, I have undergone hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, and I got laid off from my corporate job. I had always worked in healthcare administration, and so I got laid off in December, and it's honestly, it's the best gift I could have gotten, because while it's a little bit stressful to start your own business, which is what I'm doing now, ironically, I'm becoming a burnout coach, or I am a burnout coach, and everything is just ramping up. But at the same time, I've never been self-employed, so it's been super interesting to navigate all this. But when I sit with all this work that I've been doing for 2.5 years, and then I look back, like, I don't know if that's a thing for you too, Cody. Like, have you ever laid out your whole timeline and then you look back and you're like, oh, yeah, now I understand why this happened? Like, have you had that?
Yeah, and that's what I've been currently going through, is just realizing that even the last 5 years of my life, everything is happening for a reason, and I'm starting to become made aware of why, which, they say, right, that looking back, retrospection is 2020, right? We always see a better vision kind of looking backwards. So, and that's what I've been trying to do, is being like, okay, this happened to me for a reason. Now figuring out why. But there's a part of me that realizes that we have to go through an experience to then create a belief, to then change our actions and our behaviors, and then looking backwards, you get to see why it happened, and then it makes sense. And I think it's more of that validation of knowing that, okay, this did happen for a reason, and I'm okay. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly that.
So.
And where are you at with your journey compared to where I'm at? Or I'm assuming I shared enough information. Yeah. Where are you, like, how far out are you on where you started your process? Because I've watched most of your videos, but I think I've missed a few.
Yeah, and I try to share enough that gets people the kind of the insight to my life, but there's also a lot of things that I don't share yet. And I've always been a kind of a private person, but realizing that has not served me very well, and I'm learning that it's okay to be open and to show the world. So that's kind of my process in a bottle. But for me, yeah, it's about 2.5 years ago is when everything kind of kicked off, and I feel like I had my initial awakening. And I've talked to a lot of people that have come through, like yourself, a lot of trauma, a lot of loss, a lot of things in life that have just changed how we see things, and that seems to be a very common theme lately with those others that I've talked to about kind of what began their awakening. And mine started from really chasing the idea of wanting to know who I was, but doing it more through psychedelics and through plant medicine. And so that's kind of what started mine, is as I took a very large mushroom dose after I'd done a lot of research. I was introduced to mushrooms a few years prior, but it was more of a fun hang out in the hot tub and a couple friends just sitting there laughing for a few hours at a time. And then wanting to understand it more, I started doing a lot of research and realizing the benefits and the mental abilities and the just kind of working through trauma. And I decided to kind of take the advice of Paul Stamets, who's a self-proclaimed psychonaut who loves mushrooms, mycology, and after doing a lot of research, he challenges people to take a 5-gram dose in complete darkness with a blindfold, and just to completely go internal and face your thoughts. And that's what kicked mine off. I took a very large mushroom dose by myself and fell off my bed. I woke myself up, which I'm still at this point trying to decide if I was awake physically or if it was more mentally. But for a good portion of like 30 minutes, I was laying on the ground halfway underneath my bed, knocking on the bottom of the box springs, telling myself to wake up, Cody, wake up. And to this
Oh my
day, I
gosh.
still feel like it was more of an internal dialogue with myself, telling, my higher self telling my physical body to spiritually wake up. And that moment happened, and it's kind of moved forward from there. But I've gone through a lot of, what's referenced as dark night of the soul, big tower moments,
Yes. Yep.
understanding trauma, realizing why I was chosen, if you will, in my genealogy and my life path to handle some of these things. I grew up from a very rough childhood. My parents divorced when I was 8 years old, and I raised my two younger brothers for the most part.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
my dad was the one that got custody of us through the divorce, and not because he was the better parent. He was adopted into the Rampton family. So my uncle was the governor of Utah here in the 80s, and the family was very wealthy, and they paid for the divorce, got my dad custody, which to this day I don't have a relationship with him. I choose not to. I won't allow him to know my daughters. Um, I don't want him to have their phone number. He's not the type of person that I would trust with my children, and I don't want to share too much of his story. But if if
Sure.
if he had the money to be on that list that's being passed around with the E word, then he would have been that type of person that would showed up on that
Oh
island.
man.
So he's not a
Oh.
person that I would allow in my life anymore, and I learned that at a really young age that I needed to separate myself from him. And so at 16 years old, I went out on my own. I started working full time. Had a girlfriend just out of high school that we ended up having my oldest daughter together with, never married. And then at her first birthday, we kind of realized that neither of us were suited well for each other. We tried for a long time to stay together, and we were never married, but ended up raising my daughter kind of separate from her mom for a long time. And then 5 years into that, I met my current wife. We've been married for 20 years right now, and have two other children. So youngest is 17, middle one's 19, and my oldest is 26, married, and we've got two grandkids. But so that's kind of my quick life story. But through all of that process, I had slowly become very detached from my family because I always had the mindset that I needed to work and I needed to provide and I needed to be the paycheck and give everybody what I never had as a kid. And
Hmm.
then the awakening for me happened, and I realized that a lot of things in my life were going the wrong direction and not what I was hoping for. And now I'm unintentionally trying to resolve a lot of my problems that I've caused with my kids and conversations that are being had now to kind of realize who I was then and who I want to be now. And so, yeah, when it comes to like that, I think I have a very big understanding of what's happening on the planet right now, and the rise of frequency and the awakening of a lot of humanity.
Hmm.
There's a lot of knowledge that I feel like I've been given, but I'm still putting in the pieces together. So as far as kind of why things are happening, and ultimately I think that's what's coming to right now is we're collecting a large group of people into this little community, and creating a safe space to be able to share our information and share our knowledge, because I believe that everybody here has had a different direction or a different path getting us to the same point, and it's going to take a huge collection of a lot of people to be able to kind of move forward with what's coming or what's changing on the planet. So that's what I think school is. We get to all come from different aspects of life, but we're all here together right now in this moment, and I think it's on purpose. So yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, kind of continue with your story. What after you've kind of had these moments and you're awakening and realizing you're moving through trauma, what's changed for you so far?
Oh my God, so much. So started working with that coach December of 2023, and I had so many blind spots. Like, first of all, I think I discovered my wound of worthiness was deeper than I realized, and I attribute a lot of that largely to what was my ex-husband's narcissistic tendencies. I don't want to overuse the word narcissist, but he definitely had a lot of tendencies, and he wasn't probably wasn't the best partner for me. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't give it his best shot. I absolutely will give some of that credit where it's due, but at the same time, he wasn't the partner that I needed. And so there was a lot of trauma for me with experiencing, whether or not I deserved things, whether or not I was ever right about anything, because I was consistently made to feel like I was not good enough, or that everything I did was just seemingly falling short. And so to this day, all that work that I've done since December of 2023 has been, I've done a lot of work on a lot of things, but that wound of worthiness was a big one. Because also, like, if you think about it from this perspective, and I don't know what your relationship is like with your mom, but like with my dad, it's like I'm the typical girl who has, or woman, whatever, who has issues with like daddy issues. Like my dad and I get along beautifully and we're still connected, but he is so stoic and doesn't ever say I love you, and just very I don't know, he came from a really cold family. And so you've probably heard or seen stuff on social media, something about, and I've probably even posted this before, but something like you get to a stage in your life where healing is like a choice, and if you choose not to do your healing, it's like there's going to be repercussions to that. Sadly, one of them being not being close with one's daughter, aka me. Mm-hmm. So I think I have finally reached a place where I can have a good relationship with a partner and know what I bring to the table, because for a long time I don't feel like every time I had a need, I was met with resistance or defensiveness or whatever, which again, it's a lot of the societal stuff that was, I think, done to men. And so as far as what I've been learning, it's like there was this blind spot of that, but moreover, and this is probably going to be what speaks to the masses more than anything, which is the over-functioning. I think there's way too much focus or emphasis on, and I bet you and most other people could probably relate to this, is that just the need to be productive all the time. It's horrible. Like people got to a point where, and still like feel like if they sit and rest, they feel guilty. And I'm like, geez, that's horrible what society has done to us in that aspect. That if you're not producing something, you're not worth something, Yeah,
and for me, what I feel like is in that same aspect, right? We've kind of enslaved ourselves into this whole idea that we have to be productive and working to produce. And I found myself knowing that I functioned very well in chaotic moments. I was always the one that got put into different, so I came out of the car industry, just recently left my job. And I was a finance director for a large Ford dealership. And I had moved around different stores, but I always found myself in situations where I was the one fixing all the problems. And got moved to a store that had over $1 million of contracts that had not been funded, and just people that stopped producing their work and just stopped doing it. But I would come in and fix these problems within a few short days or a few weeks. And I found myself being the one that functioned very highly in chaotic moments. So that became my comfort zone, was chaos. And for me, wanting to figure out what peace was, and I heard a lot of videos, people say, you ask God for peace, and I'll use God in the term of, everybody understands the name God, but for me, I think of it as like source, creator, the universe, like a little bit higher version than just a spiritual person sitting up in heaven. So when I realized that I was being shown everything opposite of what I was asking for, right? I asked for peace and I was being shown chaos. And for me, I realized that it was not because I was getting opposite of what I was asking for, but I was learning how to hold peace and understanding why I was doing things in a certain way. And so you want to learn how to have peace in your life, you have to understand the complete opposite. And so I share that with my daughters. Both of my younger two girls are 17 and 19. They wrestle in high school in the girls' wrestling team. And both of them are extremely talented and very, very strong. Like both my girls would probably take me down and kick my butt. They're so athletic that it's unreal. But both of the girls have competed at a very high level in high school. They both went through divisionals. They were qualified as state qualifying top 16 in the state in their weight class. And both of them had the opportunity to lose at the state tournament and not medal. And it was heartbreaking to watch my girls break down and to cry and to feel like they were a failure. And sorry, it's a little emotional for me right now because I know that everything in our life is for a reason. And when we take the lessons that are being given to us and apply it correctly, then we start seeing the beauty of why we got chosen to see something from a negative point of view, and not negative, but just a learning aspect, right? And so my daughters, after losing and getting eliminated from the state tournament, just had a breakdown. And I shared with them, both of them, the same story. Says we don't get to understand and feel how great it is to be a champion until we know how to hold and accept the failure and the loss. And I think that's where a lot of people's lives happen. They think that life's kicking them in the face and that everybody's out to get them and it's all poor pity me. But what that's truly doing is showing them the exact opposite of what they want in life, because I believe that that's their one step closer to the breakthrough. You can't hold how great life is until you understand the opposite. So I feel like that's my understanding at the moment. That's where my life's kind of gone through, as I've had some really crazy scenarios in my life, or things that I thought wasn't fair, and why me, and why can't I just have a dad that's present in my life, or why can't I just have everything perfect like my neighbors? And I've realized that it's not because I wasn't capable of having it, but it was because I had to see the opposite, because the good side of it was coming. And so hearing some of the stuff you've gone through, all I see in my mind now from my perspective is I'm so excited to know what's coming in for you, because you've had to go through some pretty serious things in life to get to be able to hold the opposite. So it's hard to hear people struggle, but it's so exciting when I know what's coming for everybody else. So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh man, I hear you on seeing your kids struggle. My kids are 21 and 26. The 21-year-old will be 22 in July. So they're, one of them lives out of state. The younger one lives with me. But all of us, I mean, especially the loss of their dad, but all of us have undergone our own very significant traumas individually. And so if anything, it's brought us closer, but it is painful to see, you know, the people you love the most, your kids, go through that heartache. So I can understand why that would be an emotional experience for you and for them, because man, it's like you work your whole life, or you know, however many years, to get to the point of where they did. But I do understand now, and I never would have understood then, you know, like at their ages now. But you and I know at our ages that, like, it doesn't make sense why you've lost in the moment, but like months, days, weeks, years later, whatever, it does eventually make sense, right? So yeah, I guess you could say that some of the other stuff I uncovered in that coaching experience was also largely around not realizing, like you talked a lot about how you have to be able to experience the chaos and the pain and, you know, whatever, in order to experience the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess you could say that I didn't even realize at that time, but like I have been addicted to speed of life, speed of everything. Like I'm a very high energy person. You could say that hormone changes and life changes like that have really changed my ability to be super high energy. I still am, but oh my gosh. I mean, not everybody can handle having people in their life that are as bouncy and high energy like myself. But at the same time, it took kind of going through some of these things, because since I started working with that coach, naturally my hormone changes continued to progress. And I think that the summer of, it was either 2023 and or 2024, where I was probably between that and after my ex passed away, I definitely hands down darkest moments, because this these hot flashes that I have, I mean, I can take medication that helps, but I have an immense amount of breakthrough symptoms. And so uh, having to admit that I have had to use cannabis a great deal to manage my symptoms, and that has its own stigma. I'm a productive pothead, but
I'm on that same page. I function
are you?
so
Okay.
much better, so much better. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And it's hard though, like, because then there's other side effects, right? Like, I could drink stuff, I could take edibles, whatever, but like nothing works for my nausea and stomach issues like smoking the flower.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with that is the smell and the stigma around it. And then now I'm starting to get a cough. So it's just dumb stuff like that. But the reality is, I deeply appreciate how much grace the people around me have given me, but also, and I'm curious, like, if this is a thing for you too, or with other people you've had to connect with. I think the single biggest challenge that I've had to face in these last 2.5 years where I've been, I've woken up, but it's having to sit with and learn to sit with uncomfortable feelings, which I started to kind of refer to earlier in the conversation about the fact that I was addicted to speed. And it's like, even down to I'm like a real music junkie and I like going to concerts and stuff. But when I listen to music, like I wasn't even really listening to like slower music because I wanted something that would pick me up and make me want to be energetic. And I didn't even realize all of this busyness, all of this listening to fast music, working in chaotic environments that were super fast paced, like breakneck speed, all that chaos was teaching me or enabling me to avoid sitting with, I don't know, something my coach always says is the answers you seek lie in the stillness you avoid is so true. And it's like, I didn't even realize I was doing it, like I didn't even have the awareness.
Yeah. And that's
that
what I think.
I was avoiding those things. Is that for you too at all? Or?
Yeah, no, 100%. Because so prior to leaving my job, right, I would work 6 days a week, 12-hour days for a long time in my career. I slowly started kind of taking back ownership of my own time where I was not willing to work the extra hours, and I started kind of fighting back against the feeling of being trapped into a work environment. But yeah. I've always had hobbies of anything. I love woodworking, so I would go build stuff in my garage. Most of my house remodel is things that I've done and built and made my own. And I've had passions between building cars and trying to make something faster and rebuilding jet skis and just learning how to do things to occupy my time. And so, yeah, I definitely know that I was in the same path. I wanted to not have any free time because it felt like that was me being lazy. And learning how lately to just sit down and slow down everything, that all kind of happened for me a month ago when I took that solo trip. I went by myself for 2 weeks to Maui and spent 2 weeks alone hiking through the mountains, up and down through the volcano in Haleakala. I hiked over 20 miles alone, sat on the beach for hours at a time, just staring out into the ocean and looking at the sun and just wondering what my life was about, and realizing that after I was done with 2 weeks, I was very capable and calm in those moments of doing nothing. But there was the first couple days where I had massive panic attacks. I almost bought a flight home the second day just because I'm like, I can't do this alone. I was scaring myself to being okay with sitting with my own thoughts. And it took a long time to be comfortable with that. And now it's like I seek those silent moments. I seek the peace. I seek the quiet times. Not because I feel like I'm lazy or I'm not motivated. It's because that's where I think a lot of the most internal work is being done. That's where we get to heal and handle some of those racing thoughts. And so I think that's what society has created, is an environment where we're forcing ourselves to stay busy to prevent us from allowing those slow moments and the times where we can really evaluate what we're doing in life and why it's important to us. And so that's what I think is happening, is people are kind of waking up to this understanding that what we've been doing and how we've been living is not what's in the best interest of souls learning how to evolve into a higher dimension. And that's that's my understanding of what we're doing here is we're waking up to a different reality of knowing that we are the creator. We're the ones that are co-creating our universe, our reality, and when we get to slow down enough to focus on what's important to us, that's where, for me, I left my job and I'm trying to do things that are creating happiness in my life, which I feel right now is my why. Or why am I doing this? I want to be a part of people's lives. I want to be part of their memories. I want to be an influential part in somebody's, awakening period and what they're changing and how they're understanding life. And it started as an idea to start a business, and now it's evolved into a podcast, and talking to people across the world and just sharing stories, because I think so many people are so feeling like they're alone, and we're not. There's a lot of us going out through this, and there's, I don't know, tons and tons of cool stuff happening. It's just now we're all waking up to realizing that we get to choose what we allow in our life, and I think everybody's gone through their own personal life and their trauma, their own hell, if you will, to get to this point where we realize that it's okay to have something different. So
most definitely. The other thing that's super interesting, and I'm curious what your lens is on this, is that, and like beliefs aside, right? Like, it doesn't matter to me what you or anybody else believes in. I just know, for what it's worth, I was raised Catholic, but to this day, like, I don't know if I don't think I believe a lot of the stuff that I was taught growing up. And as wild as it sounds, I don't know if you are curious about or have started looking into people who've had near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of not had an actual near-death experience, but through a mushroom experience, I've had several ego deaths where I thought I was actually dying, and kind of surrendered to the idea of death, feeling like I had ended my physical self, and was then kind of shown higher dimensions and what's really here, what we're doing. And I've lost all fear of death. I don't have any worries about what would happen after my physical body chooses to die. But that's what I've come to realize is I believe that we're here in a physical vessel on the 3D earth to understand and learn from emotions. That's what I feel like kind of our life path is you can't experience emotions. You can't experience life or grief or struggle or love. You can't experience anything outside of a physical vessel. So that's my belief, is that we're all here choosing to experience life, to learn from emotions, and to kind of heal our karmic lessons and deal with things that are passed through DNA, through our genealogy. And so but in near-death side, I think a lot of people that have had those experiences are just capable of seeing something from a higher perspective, and then choosing to return to share that story and kind of help people understand that there is something way bigger than just a life here on this earth. And when we die, it's not an end to anything. It's just a continuation of our soul evolving. So.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that the only reason why I brought that up, and up to you if you want to continue the dialogue any further, but I asked you about that largely because I think the people who have undergone all of those, like a near-death experience, have really crystallized exactly what their experience was in like a very significant detail. People who were gone for minutes before they were brought back, and what their experience was like. And like you, I don't fear death at all anymore, if nothing else. I think it sounds really cool, but it also, all those stories do basically is what led me, largely that coupled with just my own spiritual practice, but led me to the belief that I don't know if traditional religion is going to survive. I mean, I don't have a problem if it does. I don't care what other people do as long as it's not thrust upon me. Yeah. But I think it was those near-death experiences and the spiritual experience around all of it is what caused me to arrive at my thoughts today, which are very similar to yours. So I just thought that was super fascinating.
No, for sure. And I think that's where a lot of people's kind of understanding of what's changing is coming from, is that just getting a glimpse into a bigger picture. And And I tried sharing with my mom one day at lunch my understanding of kind of the evolution of a soul and the purpose of our life here. And we were raised in the LDS church and grew up Mormon. I was married in the Salt Lake Temple. So I spent a lot of time kind of really ingrained into that religion, and then had
Yeah.
this understanding that in my belief, or spirituality and what we're going through is just a very bigger aspect of religion. Religion, I think, was a man-made, fear-based system to keep people into a smaller mindset, if you will. That you do enough history and research back into even the Bible, and understanding that back into old days in the Catholic Church and Christianity, that only the priest had the Bible, and only the priest got the chance to share his message, and it was how he wanted to interpret it and how he wanted to share with his congregation was what that message was portrayed. And realizing that there's probably been a lot of religions that were based on one person's opinion for a long time, not just a bigger aspect. So I think that's what's happening, is we're all kind of realizing that everything that we've been taught, everything that we've lived, the life that's gone on so far has just been the opinion of somebody that's been passed on long enough. And now we're choosing to see things from a different perspective. So it's I don't think that religion's wrong. I just think it was limited, and now that we are seeing it from a different perspective, people get the chance to understand more of the truth. So, but
Yes.
but yeah, like
The
in
veil
my
is lifted.
yep, and that's what I was trying to share with my mom, is this idea that we're here to live a life. How we choose this life determines what level of heaven we get to rise to when we die, and that's it. We get this one life to then decide where we end forever. And my belief is that we are having multiple lifetimes, that we've done this over and over and over for the evolution of our soul. And each lifetime, we're choosing certain lessons to learn during our life. We're choosing certain karmic patterns to break. We're choosing certain generational traumas, family genealogy problems. I've dealt with wounds from my father's side, learning how to be a better parent for myself, for my kids. I've broken a lot of the kind of the family genealogy, like timelines that have continued to repeat through. If I go back through, what my dad and my mom went through, what his parents went through, like all the way back to ages, I can see the patterns that start happening over and over and over. They've just been passed down through time. And then realizing that now we get to break those patterns. We get to choose to act differently or to respond to an argument differently. That's now a choice that I think we were just kind of asleep to doing it the way that it's always been programmed. And I think that's what's happening, is people are waking up to realizing that you get to now choose to create your own life, your own reality. And that's really, I think, the aspect of what we're doing. We're co-creators. Sorry. I'm type 1 diabetic, and my alarm goes off when my blood sugar went low, so I'll snack here in a minute. But,
Okay. Better take care of that.
But yeah, that's kind of my understanding where we're at right now, is as we're truly just waking up to realizing that things are better. And really quick, I made a note as we were talking, when you were sharing about your ex-husband and kind of his role in your life. And I've come to realize that there's several roles that we choose to occupy in this lifetime, right? A soul partner is somebody that's truly just another version of your soul that's there helping you along your journey. And whether you're doing it as a husband, wife, a best friend, a coworker, there's a purpose for a soul partner to be in our lifetime. I also believe that maybe, and this is my opinion, that your husband was your karmic partner. He was in your life on purpose. You guys created a soul contract to do certain things during your time together that would cause you to experience certain things in your reality. And I believe a karmic partner is somebody that's only here for a certain time frame, whether it's a couple decades of a marriage, whether it's a couple minutes of an interaction with somebody on a subway, like just something. There's a reason that they came into your life. There was a lesson to be learned from that experience, and it was all done on purpose. And when I started realizing that for why my parents were who they were, and certain relationships that I've had in my life, I realized that everything was on purpose to teach me something from each experience. And so I would say maybe look through that relationship and find out what lessons did you learn from that relationship, or what was something that happened that caused you to think differently. Because that's my understanding of a karmic partner, somebody that's here for a reason, to help you progress as your soul learns what it's doing on this lifetime. So
Yes.
We
This whole
definitely can.
contract thing was something I was going to ask you about. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're aligned.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, and like I said, when we first started our call, I feel horrible because I'm coming up to like I need a 5 minute window to get prepared for the next call, and I've got too many calls
No,
booked
that's
back to
fine.
back. But I think we're now right on the page where we need a part two. So,
Yeah,
but
all good.
yeah,
Happy to connect later. Maybe do you want to shoot me a text, or
yeah, I'll
what
do
would be
that.
the easiest way to move forward?
Let's do that. I'll send you a message, just kind of give you an idea of what my schedule looks like, and at the same time, if you wanted to get back to the Google Calendar link and just schedule your next time slot that works for you, that's the fastest and easiest way for me to know my schedule's open. Because once 3 call slots get booked for a day, then it kind of blocks out the rest of my day for my personal stuff. So that's the fastest way to know what the calendar looks like. But I'll definitely shoot you a message and see what we can do to kind of continue this conversation, because I think we're now just getting to the good stuff. So
Yeah, no, that would be really cool. Thank you for this connection. It's been really cool getting to know you, and I look forward to connecting again.
absolutely. And thank you so much, Heather. And I'll reach out and we'll start this up again in a little bit.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Take care.
All right. You as well.
Thanks, Cody.
For sure. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you again for listening to this episode with Heather. And I truly appreciate your time and the energy that you share with us. And again, just some quick information as we move forward. The podcast, The Awakened Stranger, is up on Spotify. We've got a link to Amazon Music as well as YouTube, so a few different platforms to hear that from. On my TikTok page, on the main bio, is a link to my Google Calendar that will give you the opportunity to schedule a time slot in your best time that links up with my available time to have a conversation, to share your awakening story, to hear some of your life experiences. And I would love to be able to connect with as many people as possible. I think it's therapy for myself, as well as the ability to talk and share our stories is helpful to a lot of the world right now. So links there on the TikTok page for the calendar. I've also duplicated everything onto the Instagram page. On TikTok, the way to find me is at Cody Rampton. And there's actually been a lot of fake accounts happening lately. People are stealing my videos and presenting themselves as me and then asking for donations and money contributions. So please don't fall trap to that. I will never ask for any donations. I won't ask for anybody to share any money. So if anybody's presenting themselves that way, just know that's a fake account. On the Instagram side, it's at The Awakened Stranger. And same thing, my name Cody Rampton. But there's links to the Spotify account. There's links to the Google Calendar and a couple other sites that will kind of share some information. Schedule your time slot. I'd love to connect and talk to anybody. And then we've also got a support group on Facebook. So The Awakened Stranger is a Facebook group for anybody that would like to be a part of a larger community and be able to share stories, help each other out, and just kind of ask questions, and more as a collective community that we get to share our life and kind of the things that we're going through. So find us in all those places. And again, I thank you so much for the time that you spent with us. I look forward to hearing your story, and I love you. I hope you have an amazing day.